This is NTD Evening News. Live from our NTD Global Headquarters in New York City, here is Tiffany Meyer.
Good evening, and thank you for joining us tonight. Protests continue in Israel today after 500,000 people took to the streets over the weekend. This comes as hundreds attend the funeral of an American-Israeli hostage who was killed in Gaza. NTD's international correspondent Arian Pazdar has the Israel update.
Protests erupted in Israel on Sunday after 6 hostages were killed in Gaza last week. Police clashed with demonstrators, telling them to stop blocking traffic and directing them to leave. Protesters want the government to secure a ceasefire deal that would free the hostages.
It's about being human. There are people there. There's no reason on earth they're still there. And that's why we're here.
Police arrested 7 demonstrators in Tel Aviv on Monday for violating public order and disrupting traffic. Police say protesters used smoke grenades while blocking a highway. Labor leaders called for a one-day general strike. Hamas is still holding over 100 hostages. Israeli officials estimate that a third of them have died.
I'm crying a cry of humanity. Hostages are dying every day.
Among the 6 who passed away is American-Israeli Hirsch Goldberg Poland. His mother spoke at the funeral in Jerusalem on Monday.
I will love you and I will miss you every single day for the rest of my life. But you're right here. I know you're right here. I just have to teach myself how to feel you in a different way.
Hamas took the 23-year-old hostage on October 7th at the Nova Music Festival. He was born in California and emigrated to Israel with his family when he was 7. His mother says he lost a forearm during the attacks. Terrorists threw a grenade into the bomb shelter in which he was hiding. President Biden spoke with the parents to offer condolences. And meanwhile in Gaza, Monday was the 2nd day of a polio vaccination campaign.
Given the numbers that we had yesterday, it's off to a very good start.
The United Nations is aiming to vaccinate over 500,000 kids. A 10-month-old baby was recently paralyzed after contracting type 2 polio for the first time in 25 years in Gaza. Both Israel and Hamas agreed to 3 separate fighting pauses so kids in 3 different areas in Gaza can receive the vaccine. The campaign is set to end in 10 days. Arian Pazdar, NTD News.
And American troops partner with Syrian forces to capture an ISIS leader. The U.S. Central Command says the man helped 5 other terrorists escape from a detention facility in Syria. Over 9,000 ISIS fighters are being held at Syrian prisons. The Central Command says freeing those fighters is a primary goal of ISIS. Under more pressure to reach a hostage deal, President Biden is condemning Hamas while shifting some of that pressure to Israel's leadership. NTD's Washington correspondent Jack Bradley has the latest from the White House.
President Biden said he's close to presenting a hostage deal with negotiators. He also reiterated his outrage over the recent death of the American hostage as well as the 5 other hostages killed in cold blood by Hamas terrorists. He said he plans to hold Hamas leaders completely accountable for this. Biden and Vice President Harris met with the team negotiating the hostage deal in the White House Situation Room. They discussed working to release hostages, getting to a ceasefire deal, and mediating between the countries Qatar and Egypt. Here's President Biden this morning putting more pressure on Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu.
Mr. President, do you think it's time for Prime Minister Netanyahu to do more on this issue? Do you think he's doing enough?
No.
Now, the Biden administration has previously said that what's standing in the way of getting to that ceasefire deal is Hamas. And obviously, 6 more deaths of hostages puts more pressure on the Biden administration to reach that ceasefire deal. 3 of those hostages would have been released as part of the original ceasefire proposal by Israel back in July. The UK said Monday that it's suspending exports of some weapons to Israel because they could be used to break international law. UK Foreign Secretary David Lammy said 30 of its 350 arms export licenses to Israel will be suspended.
There does exist a clear risk that they might be used to commit or facilitate a serious violation of international humanitarian law.
Israel Defense Minister Yoav Gallant said on X that he's deeply disheartened to learn of the sanctions placed by the UK government on export licenses to Israel's defense establishment. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan met virtually with the families of the remaining hostages in Gaza held by Hamas, and the families put out a statement saying that Sullivan told them that the next few days will be critical in getting the release of the rest of the hostages. Reporting from the White House, Jack Bradley, NTD News.
Battleground states where independent voters and voter turnout will determine the race. What's top of mind for swing voters? Does Trump or Harris have a better chance of winning them over? NTD's White House correspondent Iris Tao, who's joining us in studio, recently sat down with some of them in Wisconsin for an in-depth conversation. Iris, tell us more about your journey there. What did voters there tell you?
Sure. So last week we went to La Crosse, Wisconsin, which is actually on the border between Wisconsin and Minnesota, where Trump was actually holding a town hall in that area. And then we went out to talk to voters across that area, talked to about, I think, 60, just 70 or 80 voters in that area, and asked them how they're feeling about the election. Honestly, though, at this point in time, most of them told us they're very decided already about who to vote for. We saw a pretty even split, honestly, given that it's a battleground state. A lot of them, voting for Trump, about the same amount that we talked to said they were voting for Harris. But we did find a group of undecideds in that state who told me that they're actually still pretty, split between the two because, one, they find they want some more information, especially the facts about the two candidates' different policies, and given that how Harris is a new candidate relatively in this race, and that they want to see her debate Trump next week on a debate stage for the first time ever. And here's a clip of that focus group we did with some of these undecided voters about what their concerns were. Let's take a look.
The more that I hear negative from certain ones, actually they're losing my vote. It's just not enough there for me to believe what's being said.
And you think that's for both of them?
Yes. I'm seeing enough negative both ways.
I'm still undecided on this because I'm still waiting for more facts. Harris hasn't released any of things about her policy yet.
She's like leading that carrot in front of you and you're supposed to keep on running and not going to give it to you till the end. I need all the facts out there before I decide. So that's why I'm undecided.
Tell us the top 2 issues for you in this election and any reason that they matter to you personally.
The border is number one. There's so many that are coming over and we don't, there's the crime, I think, is escalated because of it, as we've been watching the news. The other one is probably economics. I'm retired now and everything just keeps on going up and it doesn't seem like it's going to end.
I would say the border also, the sex trafficking that's going on of these young children and women. You've got these Venezuelan gangs coming in now that they show taking over apartment buildings. What are you going to do if somebody, like I was saying to Robin, what are you going to do if somebody shows up at your house, 6 guys with guns, and tells you to get out of your own home?
And Iris, this election is likely to come down to these undecided voters in battleground states. What can you tell us about the Trump campaign strategies in winning them over?
Right, so actually also last month we sat down with the Trump advisors for a campaign briefing about their strategies in this election. Meanwhile, they told us that what they're doing is to have a very tailored approach, targeting what they call persuadables, especially in battleground states. They told us that people in this category would include those, for example, who are really struggling financially. They care about inflation, they care about the economy going on right now, and also some of them might be independents or third-party voters who might be turning to Trump, especially given RFK Jr.'s situation. And also, for example, minority voters like Hispanic and Asian voters, and also veterans. And these are the subgroups, they call them, of these persuadables. They're really trying to target, for example, using text messages and also using email campaigns, advertising, and they're using big data to find these voters to really not to, use a massive blanket approach to reach out to everyone, but to really focus on these ones who are still deciding, and those ones in battleground states that would decide the outcome in November. Meanwhile, also seeing the Harris and Walz campaign ramping up their approach as well. Today they were in Detroit and as well as Pittsburgh to target these voters. And also Governor Walz today said how union workers really build the middle class, they build this country, also emphasizing what he calls blue wall states, which are these Midwestern battleground states like Wisconsin, that where voters there will really decide what's going to happen in just 2 months.
Quite fascinating indeed, Iris. Thank you so much for those updates. Coming up on September 10th, former President Trump and Vice President Kamala Harris are slated to begin their first face-off on the debate stage, with the election happening in just over 2 months. What questions do voters have in mind for the two candidates? NTD's Sam Wong was out at the National Mall to find out what the folks had to say about the race.
By what method do you plan on voting this year?
In person.
And why is that?
Because I just feel comfortable that way. I feel like I know my vote is going in, where in the mail, things happen.
Absentee. Yeah, I'm actually going to be out of town during the election season, so absentee voting, yeah.
I prefer the electronic ballot.
Electronic, and why is that?
Just easier. I'm used to being electronic these days, paper-free.
I think I'll probably do in person. I like the process of voting. I think it's really important to go engage in it and have it be a whole experience.
At the moment, don't really know for sure how I'm going to be doing it, but I'm going to be doing it one way or another.
Sounds good. How about you?
I'm going to plan to vote in person just because I know it's going to happen. There's nothing that's going to stand in my way of voting, so I'm going to make it happen.
I've actually never voted. I just know how the system works, and it's just not my interest to vote.
So what are some of the questions you hope the debate moderators to ask on September 10th coming up?
Well, what are they going to do with the border, right? And we already know what Trump's going to do, so we're pretty sold on that. How they're going to decrease inflation.
Have questions be focused more on policy and sort of the impact of day-to-day people, rather than, what's the latest thing in the news of this person said this person did that gaffe.
There are a few questions. I'm hoping that they're going to talk about immigration and what they're planning to do for all of the migrants that are coming in. I live in Chicago, so it's a sanctuary city, and it's a big problem right now to provide housing and that, so that's a big impact for me.
So I'm just kind of curious about how they are going to tackle the consumer end of inflation and how that has been affecting our economy.
What I'm mostly worried about is Project 2025. Right out the 900 pages. Let's read it.
I'd like to know what are their policies to protect the rights of all Americans despite their religious or just any of their preferences.
I don't have any particular questions. I just want to hear how they talk. I've already pretty much made up my mind, just looking at history.
Kamala being a prosecutor, former prosecutor, she's used to holding her own and asking the hard questions and answering the hard questions, and I'm interested in seeing Trump up against somebody like that.
I just hope they keep it cordial more than anything. They kind of have a tendency in recent years to go off the rails a little bit and be unprofessional, and I don't want to see that.
The Harris-Walz team isn't wasting any time this Labor Day, appearing at several events across multiple states. The campaign says it's planning on an aggressive schedule from now until Election Day. NTD's Jason Belair has the latest.
Vice President Kamala Harris went out to connect with union and working class voters this Labor Day, starting in Detroit, Michigan.
We celebrate unions because unions helped build America, and unions help build America's middle class.
Afterwards, she went to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania to meet up with President Joe Biden for their first official campaign event together.
Wall Street did not build America. The middle class built America, and unions built the middle class. When unions do well, all workers in America do better. That's a fact.
Harris is expected to announce her intention to keep U.S. steel in the U.S., opposing a Japanese firm's effort to buy the company. Also on Monday, Governor Tim Walz did some campaigning in Wisconsin. First, Walz greeted local labor leaders in St. Paul, then went to Milwaukee to speak at Labor Fest 2024, hosted by the Milwaukee Area Labor Council. The campaign says Walz went to highlight their track record of delivering for unions. Then Monday afternoon, Second Gentleman Douglas Emhoff spoke in Newport News, Virginia at Congressman Bobby Scott's 47th annual Labor Day cookout. The campaign also announced the purchase of a $370 million TV and digital ad run targeting Battleground voters. They said it's set to run from Labor Day until Election Day.
The U.S. has seized Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro's airplane in the Dominican Republic. That's after determining that the plane was acquired in violation of U.S. sanctions. The plane has been described by officials as Venezuela's equivalent to Air Force One. It's been photographed carrying Maduro to previous state visits around the world. In a statement, Attorney General Merrick Garland said the aircraft was allegedly purchased illegally for $13 million through a shell company and smuggled out of the U.S. for use by Maduro. He added that the department will continue to pursue those who violate U.S. sanctions. The seizure comes as the U.S. continues to investigate what it regards as corrupt practices by the Venezuelan socialist regime. U.S. officials said that federal agents worked with the Dominican Republic to seize the plane. The U.S. flew the aircraft to Florida today. The Dominican Republic has notified Venezuela of the seizure, and Venezuela has a chance to petition for it. A major victory for Germany's most prominent right-wing party, Alternative for Germany. They won their first state-level election yesterday. Despite the win, they might not gain control of the state parliament. Here's NTD's international correspondent Malcolm Hudson with more for us.
Germany's right-wing party, Alternative for Germany, or the AfD, secured a major win at a state election, winning 32.8% of the vote on Sunday. A newly formed leftist party also gained substantial support, while the three parties forming Chancellor Olaf Scholz's centrist coalition lost substantial ground. The AfD's strong results weren't reserved to the eastern state of Thuringia. They also came a close second in Saxony. The AfD rose to prominence around 6 years ago when former Chancellor Angela Merkel allowed more than 1 million immigrants from the Middle East to settle in Germany. Eastern Germans have been critical of mass immigration, inflation, and German support for Ukraine. But the AfD's successes in Thuringia and Saxony don't mean they will form a government. Other major parties have refused to enter a coalition with them. That said, any coalition that does emerge between the other parties is likely to be very unstable. These state results also hint at what could happen at the national level when German voters decide on their leaders in the federal elections next year. Malcolm Hudson, NTD News, London.
Police in Afghanistan have said a suicide bomber carried out an attack today. At least 6 people were killed, 13 others were injured. A spokesman for the Kabul police chief said an explosion happened in a southwestern neighborhood in Kabul. He said that among those killed was a woman and 13 wounded people were taken to a hospital for treatment. All of them were civilians. No one has yet to claim responsibility for the bombing. The case is under police investigation. Ukrainian officials said today that Russia launched an overnight barrage of drones and cruise and ballistic missiles at Kyiv as children were returning to school across Ukraine. Some students found classes canceled because of damage from the attack. Ukraine's Air Force said it destroyed 22 of 35 missiles and 20 out of 23 attack drones. The attack sparked fires and damaged homes as well as infrastructure. On the other side of the border, in the Russian city of Belgorod, some kindergartens will close for a week, while several schools will hold classes online. That's according to the governor of Belgorod. He said a Ukrainian attack destroyed a child care facility today. Both sides deny targeting civilians. This is after dozens of civilians were injured after Russian missiles struck the Ukrainian city of Kharkiv on Sunday. Ukraine says the number of people hurt could be as high as 50.
Ukrainian officials said Russian missiles hit a shopping mall Sunday in Kharkiv, a city in eastern Ukraine. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said nearly 50 people were injured.
Today, Russia has once again brutally attacked Kharkiv. As of now, nearly 50 people have been injured. Everyone is receiving the necessary assistance. Rescuers continue to clear the rubble, as there are reports of people trapped beneath it.
Rescue workers and volunteers carried injured civilians to ambulances over shattered glass and debris. Officials said 5 children were injured. Many people fled to a metro station for shelter.
I was at work when there was an explosion. Glass shattered, our furniture fell. I just ran to the metro as I was. It was very loud, there was a fire, but I didn't know what exactly caught fire. As we came here, there was an even louder explosion. People were shouting. There were injured people. There was blood.
The attack prompted Zelensky to renew calls on allies to allow Kyiv to fire Western-supplied missiles deeper into Russian territory.
With our own drones and missiles, we are capable of accomplishing a part of the assignments, but real peace, a real end to this war is a multifaceted task, and to coerce Russia into peace. And this depends on President Biden, on Prime Minister Starmer, on President Macron, Chancellor Scholz, and others.
Earlier in the day, Russia said Kyiv launched one of the biggest drone attacks since the war began. Meanwhile, Moscow's forces made further gains towards a key town in eastern Ukraine. Also on Sunday, Ukrainian forces shelled Russia's southern Belgorod region. Russian officials said 11 people were injured. The regional governor said the attack damaged homes and apartments. He wrote on the messaging app Telegram that 2 young children were undergoing surgery after sustaining serious injuries. Independent media could not confirm Russia's account of events, and Ukraine made no official comment. Moscow's mayor said Sunday Ukrainian drones targeted a refinery near the city, resulting in a fire at the plant. Social media videos showed smoke billowing from the building. Russian authorities said more than 150 drones were shot down across parts of the country.
Russian President Vladimir Putin today said Ukraine's Kursk incursion failed to stop advances from Russia's military. He says Russian forces are reclaiming large areas of Ukraine's Donbas region. Putin also accused Ukraine of prolonging the war with Russia to avoid an election. Ukraine did not hold its last presidential elections due to the ongoing conflict. Joining us now to discuss the latest in the Israel-Hamas war is Gerard Filitti, Middle East affairs analyst and attorney specializing in international law. He's also senior counsel at the Lawfare Project. Gerard, thank you so much for joining us. Good to see you again. To begin, protests erupted in Israel and across the U.S. after 6 Israeli hostages were killed, including an Israeli American. Many, including President Biden, say Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu hasn't done enough to secure a hostage release. Where do you see a hostage and/or ceasefire deal going from here?
It's very difficult to say, largely because Israel Prime Minister Netanyahu did agree to the contours of a hostage exchange and a ceasefire. However, Hamas is the one that walked away from the table. In the last 2 or 3 months, we've seen at least twice that the Israeli government has agreed in principle to a ceasefire, but Hamas backing away from it. So unless you get Hamas to actually commit to following through, releasing hostages and engaging in the diplomatic negotiation process, you will not see a ceasefire anytime soon. Despite the growing pressure on Prime Minister Netanyahu to agree to a ceasefire, the truth is he already has. This is not a new situation. The problem is that it's not being implemented.
And when it comes to the Israeli American who was killed, President Biden issued a statement saying he's devastated and outraged, and adding, quote, "Make no mistake, Hamas leaders will pay for these crimes." How do you see U.S.-Israel relations changing following this, or will they?
I don't think American-Israeli relations will change in the near future. Joe Biden is very supportive of Israel and its ability to defend itself, and is very cognizant of the fact that the bad actor here is Hamas. One thing that should be pointed out is that Hamas, following the last successful release of a hostage, or rather when one was rescued by the Israeli forces, Hamas implemented a new policy to execute hostages if there was any risk of them being rescued. This is what we saw happening 2 days ago. Hostages were actually executed by Hamas instead of being allowed to be rescued. This is what the Israeli government is dealing with. President Biden understands that fully well, and in the near term, I don't think that there will be any change in Biden's support for Israel. That may change if Vice President Harris is the one in the White House, but for now, the United States-Israel bond remains unshaken.
Expanding on that, Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu has promised retaliation, while Hamas is threatening to kill more hostages if Israel tries to free them militarily rather than through a deal. What do you see Israel doing now?
I think Israel will continue putting military pressure on Hamas. It is a very tragic and a very difficult situation for Israel right now, because on the one hand, you have to safeguard the rights and the lives of 7 million people. You have to of millions of people, millions of citizens who are facing this onslaught of terror attack from Hamas and Hezbollah and other Iranian proxies on a constant basis. On the other hand, you have to give hope to the families of the hostages that everything is being done to get them back, to negotiate their release. But realistically, for any government, you have to do what is in the best interests of the large majority of its citizens, and that is destroy the ability of Hamas to continue to wage war. And unfortunately, that means that there may be more civilian casualties and there may be more hostages that are killed.
And Gerard, as we get closer to a full year since October 7th, when Hamas killed 1,200 people and kidnapped hundreds more, what do you see as the solution to ending this conflict? Would a ceasefire be enough?
A ceasefire that allows Hamas to remain in power would likely not be enough. We would only see more attacks and more terrorism throughout the world. This is really Iran. It's not about Hamas and Hezbollah. This is Iran that is pushing the buttons and orchestrating these attacks, not just in Israel, but in many countries around the world. And ultimately, if there's a ceasefire that allows Hamas to retain power, we will only see yet another October 7. We will see more terrorist attacks down the line. So really, the only positive outcome here, the only possible outcome, is the complete destruction of the ability of Hamas to wage war in the future. That may not be something that happens within weeks or months, but that's something that's very much necessary for Israel and for the United States to have regional security.
Gerard Filitti, Middle East Affairs analyst and attorney specializing in international law. Thank you so much for joining us.
Always a pleasure. Thank you.
Right before Labor Day, thousands of hotel workers went on strike at top U.S. hotel chains over the weekend. NTD's David Lamb has the details.
Over 10,000 hotel workers on strike, supported by the Unite Here union.
We're striking at multiple hotel chains, including Hilton, Marriott, Hyatt, and Omni.
The union said after months of unresolved negotiations, workers walked off the job on Sunday at 25 hotels in 9 cities, including Baltimore, Honolulu, Boston, San Francisco, San Jose, San Diego, and Seattle. The union said the strikes can last 1 to 3 days. Housekeepers are calling for higher wages and automatic daily room cleaning. They said their workloads are unmanageable, and in many cases, workers had fewer hours to complete their tasks.
So the strike right now is about better living wages for hotel workers, a better health insurance, a better pension, also to fix the do not disturb issues in housekeeping.
Hotel workers struggled during the COVID-19 pandemic shutdown and came back facing worker shortages and evolving travel trends. In a statement before the strikes began, Hilton said it was committed to negotiating in good faith to reach fair and reasonable agreements. The union has urged travelers to cancel their hotel stays if the workers are on strike and to demand penalty-free refunds. Hotel workers in different cities could be striking in the coming days, and at least 15,000 hotel workers have voted to authorize strikes. David Lamb, NTD News.
It's Labor Day and many people are celebrating with an end of summer barbecue, but for some folks, barbecue is not just a casual yet delicious meal, it's also a craft. In Nevada, pit masters gather to compete in what's referred to as the Super Bowl of Rib competitions. NTD was there. Take a look.
Barbecue is an iconic part of American culture, and it's even more evident here in Sparks, Nevada. Victorian Square has become the epicenter for barbecue lovers from around the world, all gathering for one purpose: to experience the best ribs the West has to offer.
Yeah, we have the Best in the West rib cook-off happening here in Sparks, Nevada. We have 250,000 pounds of ribs that go out of this event every year, give or take based on the year. And we account for about 400,000 people every single year.
Among the competitors, last year's winner, Porky Chick's Barbecue, stands out. Owner Mark is a seasoned pitmaster with over 40 years of experience.
Well, obviously we had the best ribs, 2023 Best in the West rib cook-off. We cook them low and slow. We have about 13 spices and rubs we put on it, and smoke them to perfection.
Tradition meets innovation with Texas Outlaw Barbecue, a 3-time champion. The owner emphasizes the importance of old-school methods.
Well, everything that we do is old school. We don't use charcoal briquettes. We don't use lighter fluid. We use lump coal and apple wood and cherry. It's labor intensive, but it's slow, but it's what's good. And all of our rubs, we don't use a commercial rub. We make our own rub. We don't use the commercial sauce. We make our own sauce. And we've been pretty good at it for 35 years.
Butch's Smack Your Lips Barbecue has 900 national awards to its name. Its owner says persistence is the key.
It's just like anything else. You evolve and you keep fine-tuning your recipes and things of that nature. So we've been doing it a very long time, which makes us stand out for sure.
Many vendors here come from all over the country, but one vendor with 466 awards came all the way from Australia. The owner of the awesome Aussie Australian Barbecue Company explains how the Australian barbecue is unique.
Yeah, I'd say the biggest difference between Australian barbecue and American barbecue is that we use a fruit-based barbecue sauce, and so we use fruit woods as well to smoke with. So the whole fruit-based concept is traditionally Australian-style barbecue.
But not all barbecue is the same. One vendor is serving up something a little different: alligator.
So it has its unique taste, its unique flavor. It's very different from either of the two. If you're eating chicken, you know you're eating chicken. If you're eating pork, you know you're eating pork. When it comes to alligator, you know it's a little bit something different. And with our special recipe, makes it a lot nicer and it's a great taste.
If you're close enough to Reno, Nevada, there might still be time to savor some of the best barbecue in the country.
It starts on Wednesday, ends on Labor Day. Of course, we crown the champion on Labor Day at our plaza stage. We have a kids zone. We have it all here. Our entertainment lineup is amazing. We do a big show every night tonight.
And for your favorite vendor, you can also vote for them.
To vote for your People's Choice, they come over and they grab a piece of paper from our box office, and then they pick their favorite river. And then at the end of the week, we tally all that together, and then we crown one People's Choice winner.
In addition to the People's Choice, food judges from all over the country will also pick the vendor with the best ribs and sauce to win the $10,000 prize bowl. Reporting by Jimmy Ma, NTD News, Sparks, Nevada.
Welcome back. I'm Tiffany Meyer. Now for your sports news, we're joined by NTD's Dave Martin. Dave, plenty to discuss today, but let's start in baseball as Milwaukee shortstop Willy homered for the 5th straight game today, tying a team record. Now, how close is he to the major league record?
Well, 8 is a major league record. 3 different players have done that. Ken Griffey Jr. was last year back in 1993. So he's 3 away, which doesn't sound like much, but it's obviously difficult to do this every single game. Meanwhile, he tied a somewhat obscure major league record because that was actually his 13th 3-run home run of the season, and believe it or not, Ken Griffey Jr. is actually the leader in that category as well. Now, this is all part of Milwaukee's win over St. Louis this afternoon. It gives them a 9.5 game lead over second place Chicago. Now, that's the biggest lead in the majors by a division leader. And you know, there was some concern in the offseason when Chicago hired away Milwaukee manager Craig Counsell. Now, he had led Milwaukee to 5 playoff appearances in the previous 6 seasons, but there's really been no drop-off this year for the Brewers under first-year manager Pat Murphy. They really have a clear path to the playoffs right now.
And moving to college football, we just had our first full weekend of games. What stood out for you as far as best teams or players?
You know, I thought Miami and new quarterback Cam Ward really looked great. You know, the Hurricanes got a big win at Florida. Very tough place to play. They call it the Swamp. It's not an easy place to win, but Ward really led the way. 385 yards, 3 touchdowns. He made it really look easy there in Milwaukee. He kind of has this calm way about him in the pocket. So anyway, what could be a close rivalry game ended up being a blowout win for the Hurricanes. Now also, number 1 ranked Georgia looked really good against 13th ranked Clemson. Now, the Bulldogs really ran away with this game in the second half. And these 2 programs have won 4 of the last 8 national titles between them. I think Clemson is going to have a very good season, but Georgia just made them look average on Saturday. That was pretty incredible. Now, meanwhile, tonight we'll have Monday night college football as Florida State plays Boston College. That game will start at 7:30 Eastern Time.
And in WNBA news, we have quite a race going for the Rookie of the Year award between Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese. What do you make of it?
Well, you can't go wrong with either player. I know you can only vote for one, but Reese leads the league in rebounds. In fact, by a ways, she actually set a record for most rebounds in a season, and the season's not even done yet. Clark, meanwhile, she leads the league in assists, and she's also 9th in scoring. Now, their teams met Friday night in Chicago. Clark had a huge game in the win for Indiana. 31 points, that was a career high. Then the Indiana Fever then won again last night with Clark. Another big game, 28 points, 12 assists. So Indiana now has moved over 500 for the first time since 2019, and they started off 1-8 this season. But of course, Indiana got Clark in the draft because the draft goes in reverse order of finish, and they've really been a struggling team. But Clark has them in playoff position now. I think that turnaround could be the difference in winning Rookie of the Year for her.
Well, looking at tennis, the U.S. Open is at the midway point, but it seems like a lot has happened already with both Novak Djokovic and Carlos Alcaraz eliminated. What favorites are left?
Well, we still have Jannik Sinner, #1 ranked player in the world. He won the Australian Open earlier this year. Now he'll play American Tommy Paul tonight. Plus 5th-seeded Daniel Medvedev won this afternoon. He'll advance to the quarterfinals. Well, he won this event 3 years ago, so I would think those two are the main favorites. But another American, Francis Tiafoe, he's already into the quarterfinals with his win last night. Now he beat Alexei Popyrin, who beat Novak Djokovic on Friday night. Now that was a stunning upset. I figured with Alcaraz out, Djokovic would cruise at least to the semifinals. Obviously that didn't happen. Now the women's side, reigning champion Coco Gauff lost yesterday in the 4th round. We still have #1 ranked Iga Swiatek. Now she'll play tonight in the 4th round. She won this event 2 years ago. I think she's the women's favorite at this point.
Well, Dave, as always, thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you, Tiff.
And NTD's 8th International Traditional Martial Arts Competition announcing Gold Award winners today. A 4-day race that brought together martial artists from 11 countries. What did they get out of this competition? NTD spoke to the award winners for their thoughts.
Our Gold Award.
The moment all has been waiting for. The announcement of the Gold Award winners of NTD's 8th International Traditional Martial Arts Competition.
Ta Yan Liu from Taiwan.
来自台湾的刘大雁。
Liu showcased Xingyi Fist, one of the many styles within traditional martial arts.
You can see it is a straight line martial art, so it uses straight lines to attack. It's very aggressive, and hand movements are typically accompanied by a step. Boom, there you go. So every time, every punch is also a step.
Liu said he was a little proud of himself after the preliminaries, but he saw some of his own shortcomings after watching the replay.
I think because I overcame the pride, and after letting it go, I was very relaxed during the finals. I felt peaceful, not under pressure. I wasn't nervous either.
Eike Offerman from Germany won gold in the male weapons division.
This is the first time really getting a real award.
Spears, sticks, swords, fists. Traditional martial arts have various styles, from a close-range fighting style to drunk fist, pretending you're drunk to confuse the opponent. Li Youfu, a judge for the competition, said traditional martial arts emphasize martial virtue, moral principles that practitioners have to observe, such as preventing bad deeds and helping good people.
If he practices traditional martial arts and he has good martial virtue, he would see breakthroughs in his mastery of this discipline.
But martial virtue, along with traditional martial arts, have been nearly destroyed by the Chinese Communist Party. NTD's competition aims to revive this traditional culture. Li said he's glad to see a resurgence of traditional martial arts, but added there's a long way to go.
And how do traditional martial arts improve one's health and uplift one's character? Contestant Taiyan Liu speaks with NTD about changes he experienced from traditional martial arts training.
A martial artist for 18 years, Taiyan Liu says the training discipline is very similar to forging a sword.
An old expression says that iron must be tempered 100 times to become steel. It's the same with martial arts. You have to keep practicing the same movement again and again. It's tiring, but you have to keep at it. Only then can you achieve true mastery.
Elevating in martial arts takes more than diligent practice, though. Liu says it's closely associated with one's self-improvement. A realization came after he hit a wall.
You just feel that you're not improving anymore, even though you're practicing every single day, but you're not moving up. No matter how much more practice you do, you're just stuck at the same level.
A memorable breakthrough came in 2019 when he searched inside during an interpersonal conflict.
I realized I was wrong in my attitude toward other people, and that I should let go of my ego. I should not treat other people that way. But before that realization, I always thought it was the other party's fault. Following this change, one day I was walking, and it suddenly occurred to me that I could do a movement differently, such as changing the spot where the movement gets its energy from and relaxing a certain part of my body. It was at that moment that I realized improving your mastery is directly linked to improving your inner state.
Still, pursuing martial arts is a testing process.
If you don't move forward in martial arts training, you would go backward. If you're lazy and stop practicing for a while, then you won't improve. To break through this realm, you have to start practicing again.
He thought about giving up when getting tired or seeing little improvement after a prolonged period of practice.
But I didn't give in to the thought. I would overcome it. I know this isn't what I want.
What kept him going? Liu said it's all the benefits and wisdom embedded in this ancient culture.
It's magical. For example, when we practice 站桩, meaning standing in one posture for a long time, it opens up the energy flow inside the body and leads to noticeable changes. You would feel very comfortable. You feel very light when you walk. Even your injuries are easier to heal.
He said unlike extreme sports, injuries are rare in traditional martial arts.
If you do it correctly, you won't get hurt. Instead, your body will become healthier and more comfortable. Your mood will also brighten up.
But this ancient culture is seeing a dramatic decline. After almost wiping out this tradition through political movements, the Chinese Communist Party is now compromising martial arts, removing the systematic training and moral principles behind it.
Contemporary martial arts is just a type of sport. It mixes and matches different schools inside martial arts. It's destroying traditional martial arts instead.
He noted severe injuries are common among those who practice contemporary martial arts. It's Liu's 5th time participating in NTD's martial arts competition. He said NTD's competitions are not just about giving out awards. In 2022, the judge did not award a gold medal.
I'm very sorry that this happened. We never expected the result could have turned out like this. We have searched over all corners of the world to find a gold medalist, but to no avail. This brings tears to my eyes.
I think he wants us to keep improving. This competition isn't just about giving out awards. Contestants really have to keep improving their mastery in traditional martial arts and even surpass those before them.
It's also a wish Liu has for himself, that he can reach the level of Kung Fu masters in the past, or even better, and help keep this ancient culture on the brink of extinction from perishing. Juliet Song, NTD News.
And that's all for today's news. For round-the-clock coverage, visit us at ntd.com or download our NTD app. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Tiffany Meyer. Good night.